Have you bought some Nerines too, and you're wondering what growing conditions they like? Well, I'm a novice gardener and I've got exactly the same question. And if you're a novice too, why don't you consider subscribing to my channel? If you click the big red button that says subscribe next to the description of this video, all that means is that next time you open the YouTube app on your phone, your laptop, whatever device you use, one of my videos will pop up for you to enjoy. And if you're a more experienced gardener and you're having a little bit of a laugh at my expense, well, why don't you subscribe too, and perhaps share the benefit of your knowledge in the comments. Hello there, I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. Now, I have always said I am not a gardener, but about 3 months ago we cleared some outbuildings from this side of the garden, which means we no longer have fresh eggs because we no longer have chickens. And I've decided that I'm going to try and embark on creating my own cutting garden. I want an abundance of flowers that I can cut to enjoy indoors. Now watch on to the end of the video and I will show you a flower arrangement that I'm going to make from my cuttings that I'm picking from the garden today, and also a little trip to the plant fair that I visited at the weekend where I bought these Nerines. So if you've got any questions or answers for all things Nerine, don't forget to let me know in the comments and we can have a chat. One thing that is crossing my mind at the moment is I've got 3 stems on these Nerines here, so 3 bulbs. Once I've cut the flower heads to enjoy indoors, will another flower head pop up? Perhaps you know more than I do, and I would really appreciate the benefit of your advice. I'm interested to know as well where you go to for your gardening advice. Do you randomly go into Google or perhaps into YouTube and search up the answer to your questions? Now, I have been doing that, but my husband has given me, out of his collection of books, The Flower Expert, and he reckoned that this would be the perfect starting point for me. And I've also got a copy of Sarah Raven's Cutting Garden Journal, and I'm using a pen there as my bookmark. If you're interested in sourcing either of those books for yourself to refer back to, I will leave a link to them in the description underneath this video. And of course, because I bought my Nerines at the weekend from a plant grower, I also took the opportunity of getting the benefit of his advice too. So what does Sarah Raven say? She advises me that in order to cultivate my Nerines, I should be making sure the noses of the bulbs show above the surface of the soil. I should be choosing a sheltered site in full sun, preferably with the shelter and warmth of a sunny wall. They do best on light sandy soil right then, and I think I need to mulch them once the foliage has died down after the end of the growing season. So Sarah says that. What does Dr. Hessian say? So again, I've marked the page here with a plant tag. And he says, Nerines are usually considered to be too tender to grow outdoors, but there is one hardy species that can be relied on, and that's the one that I've got, the Nerine Bodenii. Have I said that correctly? I'm sure you will leave me a comment if I haven't. It says the flowers measure about 3 inches across, so this must be quite an old book. It's written in Imperial, with long spidery petals which are twisted and reflexed. So reflex means bent backwards. The colour is deep pink. It needs a well-drained soil and full sun. Plant the bulbs in a sheltered spot, preferably close to a south-facing wall. So I have chosen this part of my cutting garden, which is the closest to my kitchen window. So our garden is south-facing. It gets really hot in our kitchen at summertime. And although there's probably a gap of 1.8 metres, about 6 feet, there is a south-facing sunny wall, so I'm hoping that presumably the point is that the bulbs like to be baked in the sunshine and there's going to be a bit of reflected heat from my kitchen wall. So fingers crossed I've chosen the right place for them. What do you reckon? So here is my sunny south-facing wall, and this is the little bit of a raised bed. There's a change in levels, so we've got a few steps that go up into the garden, and this is the little walkway that takes me to my little compost basket and also the water barrel. So this is the place where I've chosen. So let's have a go at planting. Now, one thing I am going to do is this plant, I've just bought it at the weekend, as I said before. It's been topped with a nice little bit of mulchy top dressing. I'm thinking that if I pour that out, I can save that, and then if I decide to plant up some bulbs to enjoy indoors, I could use this mulch as a top dressing indoors. I'm very gently going to shake that off the surface, and then let's see what we've got, making sure I don't damage my flower heads, squeezing the pot, and look at all that lovely root growth. So I shall keep the plant label and put that in my Sarah Raven journal, just so I can keep an eye on what I have been planting. And let's get digging. So I'm going to scrape back a little bit of the mulch I've got on my own garden here, and then using the pot as a guide, dig a hole. So I'm going to plant these in a grouping. Apparently over time they clump together, and you need to divide them in the springtime. So here I am hitting a stone or something else, certainly making a right old noise on my trowel. It's just a bit of a rock there. So using my pot to gauge the size, I think that looks about right. A little bit of water in the bottom, just to make sure my plants have a good start, and then gently lower that down, and you can see that the bulbs are sticking up above the level of the compost in the original pot. So I'm going to make sure I fill in, but don't add extra soil to the top. Firm that in, and then scrape back the mulch that was originally on the garden. Job done. One down, two more to go. So as I've got my trowel in my hand, I'm actually going to plant up the Verbena bonararis. Still don't know how to say that. I just noticed that the tips are going to be a little bit yellow, which is a sign, I'm thinking, that they're not getting the nutrition that they really need. So I was going to let these get a bit more established before I planted them in the garden. I think probably they could benefit with actually being planted to get the nutrients that are growing. So I'm going to plant them next to each other, exactly the same thing, get myself a hole. It seems to be quite rocky, these beds, but I guess that makes them a little bit more free draining. Bits of slate in here. Where that's from. Squeeze them out. A little bit of roots growth there, and then backfill and push down firmly. So I shall get the other one in and then give the Nerines and viburnum verbena a good watering in. So water these in, and then when I've done that, it's time to do my favourite thing, which is cropping the flowers. At least I've actually grown and had quite a bit of caretaking with over the last few weeks and months. So I'm going to use my floristry scissors for this, and I have got a single little bit of viburnum, and I'm giving that a chop. Into my bucket of water, a single calendula, and get rid of some of those lower leaves. That's the compost pile. That's quite the zinnias still aren't really doing anything. I need a dead head, pale pink cosmos. Also, take a dog length Christmas here. Dead head that one. The rest can go into the bucket. I'm really rather wishing some point to have a compost bin. Next to me, looks like I have got a new flush of white cosmos just little cosmos flower there. A few white ones over on this side too. I'm going to cut this astrantia. This last one left. And my husband was pulling my leg that I had wheat growing out of this big container here, and I was delighted to tell him that it was the seed head of the Physostegia. Oh, I think I have got a single zinnia there. I can see some mint, some flower. This is highly scented foliage and quite long lasting in the glass. And then I'm going to get pink cosmos too. You can go really long on that stem because there's nothing left on it. And the question is, do I cut one of the Nerines that I've only just planted? And the answer to that question is yes, I'm going to. Because I'm now a flower farmer, not a gardener. I'm rather lacking in abundance. And if you watch on to the end of the video, I'll show you the herbaceous borders at the stately home garden that I went to at the weekend where the plant fair was being held. So I've got some, can't remember the name, scabious to think about cutting, and also over here the dahlias are due for a cut too. So let's get some of those into my bucket and then we can get arranging. The slug seems to have given up, or not damaging quite as much of the dahlia heads as it was to begin with. So just finding my way right down to the base to cut as long a stem as possible. So these stems aren't long at all. They're finger to thumb high. So what's that, about 15 centimetres? A lovely white one here. Close down. See how far I can go. Oh, a dilemma, because if I go really far down, buds aren't going to develop. What am I going to do? I think I might leave that one there, but I might take that one at the front, and I can enjoy watching that bloom. This red one here, right at the front. Do you think there's going to be some new buds on there? I'm just thinking it's probably rather late in the season, so perhaps I can be bold with my cutting. So before we get on with my favourite part, the arranging the flowers, just a quick check-up on the cyclamen, which I planted out last week. That's all looking very healthy. And this is the lavender. It's survived a week, so hopefully that means it's going to survive much longer. I really like the neat rounded balls I've created. And the scabious are becoming established too, with some new growth. Hydrangea always looking gorgeous. I do want to cut some more heads to dry indoors, but I'm just at a quandary. Can I cut all the heads that I want to off? Or does cutting the heads off to dry count as pruning? And is this the right time of the year to prune? I would really appreciate it if you've got any advice for me. And just over the back, here are the foxgloves and the marbled leaves of the Arum italicum pictum. I'm wondering whether this calendula here needs to be planted out or moved to free it up a little bit. I've got a new jug. This is a green glass jug which I picked up for free. I belong to a sharing community here in town on Facebook, and you can offer things that you want to give away, or you can ask for things, and I spotted this yesterday, and by coincidence I picked it up from a lady who I'd given things to in the past. So because I haven't got that many flowers and the mouth of the vase is quite open, what I'm going to do is just clean up this flower frog, use a flower frog. This is a glass flower block. You can keep an eye out for them at vintage fairs, antique shops, and if you're lucky in a charity shop on car boot fair. So I'm going to put that into the bottom of my vase. It will just help to hold my flowers in place, clonk clonk, and then I will top up with water. And then have a look at the flowers that I have just picked and decide how I'm going to arrange them. I might start off with a bit of greenery, and because I don't actually have any greenery, I'm going to rely on the natural foliage that I cut with my dahlia. So trimming off the lower leaves because I don't want any foliage inside the vase, recut my stem at an angle, and then find a hole and position it in. And look, it stands upright. So as I've started off with my dahlias, I might go with my other dahlias too. So I think I've got 2 pink ones, and again this one's got a little bit of foliage on it. I'm going to take off the straggly leaves, cut out the bits that don't look perfect, recut at an angle, and then find a hole and push it in. So my vase is starting to fill up because it's got a little bit of natural greenery together with my flowers. And I'm just going to take that stalk out there, a bit of a stalk but with no flower, and then continue on. So those flowers are going to open up and they'll be quite large. I'm going to go next for my middle-sized flowers. So that is going to be my cosmos. Again, I'm going to trim out the stem where I've previously deadheaded. I don't want any sort of abrupt lines. Take off the greenery from the bottom. I could go a little bit higher with this, it's a little bit more dainty. It can nod about in the breeze. See if I can find a hole to position that in. And then this bit I'm not going to discard because I can see it's got some more buds on it. I don't know whether they will develop or not, but at least if they're in my vase and in water, they have got a chance of surviving a little bit longer. Turn that round so the little curved heads nod out of the vase rather than point towards the centre. Nice little arching quality. I'm using garden flowers, one of everything. It's just going to look like a pretty homemade posy. Not something that you would find in a florist shop, but I'm embracing what I've grown myself. And what that one round with. Actually, I'm going to move it. It's right next to that white cosmos. I'm just going to separate it out a little bit. There. And then I've got a pale pink. A white one as well. So very carefully cutting out the dead bits. Pulling off all the leaves here just because they've started to go brown. They look a bit frazzled. Having a careful look at the pink. So this has got one good flower head and several buds. Cut out that stalk. How tall do I want it? I'm going to see and just put it in as one great big piece, taking off the lower bits of green. Recut stem at an angle, and then if it looks too funny, a bit top heavy perhaps, I can always go back in and cut it shorter. I think that probably looks okay. And another purple. And once you've got the key stems in the holes, you don't then have to aim your flowers into all the other holes, because then you'll get like a spaghetti or a tangle of stems, and they will help support each other. So my showstopper, my lovely Nerine, I'm going to have that. Let's measure up. Take my vase, have a quick measure up, eye up, where to cut. I'm going to have that one there, and that will be the front of my vase. I can see it. And then my single stem of the Verbena bonariensis. I still don't think I'm saying that right. I think I need to have it on a piece of paper in front of me, spelt out phonetically. Now these scabious are really tiny, so I'm just going to poke them in right at the bottom, and they'll just nod their heads over the edge of the vase. And then my single marigold, my calendula, like a mini sunflower. Have that on that side. Oh, that looks good because it's picking up on the yellow centre inside these cosmos. So the flower arrangement starts to talk to all the other people, all the other flowers in the vase. And then my tiny little cosmos. I'd given up hope that this was ever going to flower. So cutting off the leaves that will be inside the vase. I'm considering cutting off these leaves as well because they look quite shaggy, but I'm wondering if I put it in the vase whether they'll naturally just be supported upwards. So again, I think I might face that towards the front so that I can enjoy it as it opens. And then that leaves my astrantia. So at the moment I'm looking out and seeing where I've got a little bit of a space, a gap. I'm going to put this down amongst the cosmos buds. So you can look at the astrantia first, and then as that fades I can pick it out of the vase, and then hopefully I'll get a succession of flowers, and it'll be the cosmos buds that come into flower next. And then last but not least, the mint. Beautiful, beautiful scent. And it's just picking up on the purple of the verbena there. I'm going to put that in next door. And there we have a very simple arrangement. And everything's been grown by me. Well, I probably can't claim the Nerine, but next week I will be able to. Thank you so much for watching today's video and for cheering me on in the comments. And don't forget, if you've got some advice for me, and all comments are welcome, don't forget to leave your suggestions and advice in the comments section underneath the video. That's all for me for now, and I'll see you again next time. And as promised, here is a mini tour of the plant fair that I went to at the weekend. So it was set up in Mount Ephraim Gardens, which is just outside Faversham. It cost £8 to tour the gardens. So it's known for its topiary, its lake, an arboretum and a mismaze. I'll show you that later on. So just being a novice gardener, just my first time at a plant fair like this, quite interested to see the stalls which were there, lots of gardening accessories, and of course this stall caught my eye with the pin holders. This was Dan Cooper, and he's got this lovely little bowls, and then the pin holders come from Nitaki, I think that's the name. It's the company that makes knife sharpeners and Japanese scissors and secateurs. I'll make sure I leave a link to those in the notes underneath the video. So this is the chap that I bought my Nerine from, and as we pan round you'll see the front of the house. So it's not open to the public. You can have weddings there and bed and breakfast, and there's a little cafe around the corner. And this is the entrance into the Maze, M-I-Z, maze. So it is a maze, and I'm not quite sure it's called a maze, but it's a maze not with yew bushes, but with all sorts of grasses and very tall, wafty flowers. So I seem here to be taking a direct route to the middle of the maze, where it's got a succulent growing in a large plant holder, but you can walk round and round as you would do in the maze, and there were several little children doing that and squealing with laughter. And as we come back out of that little entrance door, I'm always intrigued by this little quote above the gates. And as we get closer, can we read it? Whichever way the wind doth blow, some soil is
something, something, something. I can't read all of that. You'll have to pause the button and read it for yourselves. So I did say that the Mountie Fern was also known for its topiary. So this is in the walled garden, and the topiary looks almost like little chess pieces going down the garden path. And then there is a little cafe. You put your order in the side window around the house, and there's some seating up in the terrace. But we didn't stop because the queue for cakes and drinks was too long. So that really is all for me for now, and I'll see you again next time.